test. Which of the following is considered a pure substance? Sugar. Which of the following statements best describes a mixture? It contains more than one pure substance physically combined. Evaporation can be used to separate sodium chloride from its solution in water. A substance that consists of only one kind of particle and has the same chemical nature throughout is called a pure substance. Which of these is an example of a homogeneous mixture? Sugar dissolved in water. Milk is an example of a heterogeneous mixture, colloid. In a sugar solution, sugar is thick. Solute. The component present in a larger amount in a solution is called thick. Solvent. Which of the following is not a property of a true solution? Its particles can be seen with the naked eye. The particle size in a true solution is typically less than 1 nanometer. A mixture where particles are large enough to be seen with the naked eye and settle down when left undisturbed is called a suspension. The scattering of a beam of light by colloidal particles is known as Tyndall effect. Which of the following will show the Tyndall effect? Milk. In a colloidal solution, the solute-like component is called thick. Dispersed phase. Fog is an example of a colloid where the dispersed phase and dispersion medium are respectively liquid in gas. Shaving cream is an example of foam. Which separation technique is used to separate cream from milk? Centrifugation. A solution that cannot dissolve more solute at a given temperature is called saturated solution. The amount of solute present in a saturated solution at a specific temperature is called its solubility. Brass is an alloy, which is considered a homogeneous mixture, solid solution. Which of the following is a chemical change? Rusting of iron. A substance that cannot be broken down into simpler substances by chemical reactions is known as an element. Which of the following is a property of metals? Malleable. Which of the following elements is a liquid at room temperature? Mercury. A substance formed by the chemical combination of two or more elements in a fixed proportion is called a compound. Which statement is true for compounds but false for mixtures? Their composition is fixed, and they have new properties. Water, HO, is an example of a compound. The process of converting a liquid into a gas is a physical change. Which of these is an example of a metalloid? Silicon. The tincture of iodine has alcohol as solvent and iodine is solute. If 10 grams of salt is dissolved in 90 grams of water, the mass by mass percentage of the salt in the solution is 10%. Which of the following is a characteristic of a suspension? Its particles can be separated by filtration. Air is considered a homogeneous mixture. The property of metals by which they can be drawn into thin wires is called ductility. Which of the following is not a non-metal? Sodium. When iron filings and sulfur powder are mixed and heated strongly, the product formed is iron sulfide, a compound. Which of the following statements accurately describes the difference between a physical change and a chemical change? No new substances are formed in a physical change, while new substances are formed in a chemical change. Muddy water is best classified as a suspension. Milk of magnesia is an example of sol. Jelly is an example of a colloid where the dispersed phase is blank and the dispersion medium is blank. Liquid, solid. A common person might consider Pughie as pure, but a scientist would classify it as a mixture. Soft drinks are examples of gas in liquid solutions. The path of light becomes visible when passed through a colloidal solution like milk. Which of these is not a characteristic of colloids? Their particles settle down when left undisturbed. Elements like gallium and cesium become liquid slightly above room temperature, around 30 degrees Celsius at 303 K. The scientist who first used the term element in 1661 was Robert Boyle. The property of metals to produce a ringing sound when struck is called sonority. Which of the following is an example of an emulsion? Milk. What is the main difference between a compound and a mixture of its constituent elements? The compound has new properties different from its elements, while the mixture retains the properties of its elements. What happens to the solubility of most solid solutes in a liquid solvent as the temperature increases? It increases. A solution containing 40 grams of common salt in 320 grams of water is prepared. What is the mass of the solution? 360 grams. Which of the following is a pure substance? Iron. The zigzag motion of colloidal particles is known as Brownian movement. Which of the following methods would be most suitable for separating ammonium chloride from a mixture of ammonium chloride and common salt? Sublimation. A mixture of oil and water can be separated using a separating funnel. Which of the following is a heterogeneous mixture? Wood. The shine on the surface of metals is called luster. Which statement is true for non-metals? They often display a variety of colors and are poor conductors of electricity. If a solution has a small amount of solute compared to the solvent, it is called a dilute solution. How many elements are known to be naturally occurring? 92. Smoke is an example of which type of colloid? Solid in gas, aerosol. The process of separating insoluble solids from a liquid by passing the mixture through a filter is called filtration. Which of the following processes is a chemical change? Breaking down of water into hydrogen and oxygen gases by passing electric current. A mixture of iron filings and sulfur powder, group 1 in activity, is a heterogeneous mixture. When dilute sulfuric acid is added to a mixture of iron filings and sulfur powder, the gas evolved is hydrogen. When dilute sulfuric acid is added to iron sulfide, formed by heating iron and sulfur, the gas evolved has a smell of rotten eggs. Which of the following is a characteristic of a compound? It has a fixed composition and its properties are different from its constituents. Colored gemstone is an example of solid sol, solid in solid. The components of ink can be separated by the technique of chromatography. Butter can be separated from curd by centrifugation. Iron pins can be separated from sand by using a magnet. Wheat grains can be separated from husk by winnowing. Fine mud particles suspended in water can be separated by loading and decantation, filtration. If the solubility of potassium nitrate at 313 K is 62 grams per 100 grams of water, how much potassium nitrate is needed to make a saturated solution in 50 grams of water at 313 K? 31 grams. When a saturated solution of potassium chloride at a high temperature is cooled slowly, what is likely to be observed? Crystals of potassium chloride will separate out. Which of these materials is not a pure substance? Air. Which of the following is a solution? Sea water. Starch solution will typically show Tyndall effect. Which of the following is classified as an element? Sodium. Soap solution is generally considered a colloid. Which of the following is a chemical change? Growth of a plant. Cooking of food primarily involves both physical and chemical changes. Digestion of food is a chemical change. Burning of a candle involves both physical and chemical changes. The continuous zigzag movement of colloidal particles in the dispersion medium is called Brownian motion. Which of the following can exist as a solid, liquid, or gas at different temperatures and pressures, without changing its chemical composition? A pure substance like water. A homogeneous mixture can have a variable composition. The two main constituents of air are oxygen and nitrogen. Which property distinguishes a colloid from a suspension? Stability, tendency of particles to settle. A system where solids are dispersed in liquids and are visible to the naked eye is a suspension. Which of the following is true about the constituents of a mixture? They can be separated by physical methods. A common method to check if a colorless liquid is pure water is to determine its boiling point. The statement, all constituent particles of that substance are the same in their chemical nature, defines a pure substance. Which of the following is an example of a solid in liquid colloid, sol? Milk of magnesia. The constituents of which of the following can only be separated by chemical or electrochemical reactions? Compounds. The process of interconversion of states of matter is a physical change as composition remains same. Which of the following is a list of only elements? Iron, copper, silver. The term concentration of a solution refers to the amount of solute in a given amount of solution or solvent. When particles of a suspension settle down, the suspension breaks, and it no longer scatters light. An alloy is considered a mixture because it shows the properties of its constituents and can have variable composition.